Are you okay?
I'm okay.
The town of Hawkins isn't exactly the safest place to live in, and some of that danger carried into the real-life production of Stranger Things. These are the scenes that were dangerous and difficult for the actors to film.
If you're little and you're scared of stuff, do not maybe watch the season. Watch it with an adult.
Number 1. Millie Bobby Brown had to do a lot of spinning for this season 3 scene. During the scene when she is in the void with Billy, her character falls backwards after escaping Billy's grip. It seems like a simple stunt, but the behind the scenes execution of this scene was dizzying. Millie was hooked into a rig that spun her around and around and around. After doing the same shot multiple times and spinning over and over again, the nauseating experience actually made Millie throw up afterwards. And how can anyone blame her? That looked more intense than any theme park ride. Number 2.
Will it get hot enough? 220 degrees. We just have to figure out how to get him in here.
While the sauna scene in season 3 was meant to show Billy burning up, the actual filming of the scene had everyone on set dealing with the heat. The director of the episode, Shawn Levy, stated that there were 100 people present that day on a small set that was very tight, and that he got over 100 different angles of the scene. Things got so intense during filming that Millie Bobby Brown actually collapsed due to exhaustion during the scene, and that shot is in the show. Finn Wolfhard caught her and had no idea what to do. You can actually see him looking off screen for help in the final cut as he was genuinely concerned for her safety. Their commitment to the scene paid off, as the raw energy showed up on screen. Number 3. The finale of season 3 was an emotional roller coaster, and no scene was more powerful than when Eleven read Hopper's note to her. To ensure they got the best, most raw reaction possible, Millie made sure not to read the speech beforehand. She wanted to know absolutely nothing about it. She didn't even rehearse the scene. I just immediately wanted to put a camera on me and find the way I react. And the way I reacted was pure devastation and sadness. So the emotions were raw in that scene for sure. On top of this, they also had to film the farewell scene with everybody. She said they imagined it was the end of filming forever, and everyone started crying when the cameras started rolling. It sounds like it was a very somber day on set.
Hey. It's gonna be okay.
Number 4. The final showdown of season 3 ended in the Starcourt Mall, and at one point saw Billy pinning down Eleven as he was being controlled by the Mind Flayer. This was a difficult scene to film both physically and mentally. Millie Bobby Brown noted the scene as one of the most difficult, because the two actors needed to figure out how they were going to play the scene with the level of intensity they usually bring. Daker Montgomery was conscientious when it came to not hurting Millie during the scene, but he also wanted to bring his usual level of intensity. If you want to know how dedicated these two actors are to their craft, they said they would run around the mall screaming until they cried.
And we both lost our voices, and we don't even speak in the scene, but we were just screaming at each other.
Shawn Levy described the pair as two of our most powerful actors. Number 5. Daker Montgomery and Millie Bobby Brown's intensity didn't stop at that one scene. They were bringing their intense energy to every single scene they filmed together. Even if there's no screaming in a certain scene, I'd scream between takes, and so would Millie. We'd scream at each other until we cried. Daker described the experience of filming with Millie as a significant mental challenge, and said that they both gave 200% into every scene they did together. Montgomery was screaming so much throughout the course of filming that he lost his voice nearly every day. It sounds like the dynamic between Daker and Millie was truly special. Number 6. Let's keep rolling with Daker Montgomery's extreme intensity on set. During the sauna scene in season 3 when the kids trap Billy, Montgomery took his intensity to a whole new level, and may have gone a little too far. In the scene, his character Billy is supposed to taunt and yell at the kids through the door. That's what was shown in the final cut, but there was a much angrier take. Montgomery actually headbutted the glass window, and did so with such force that his head actually broke through the glass. The glass was thick and not designed to break, so it was a shocking moment to say the least, and the kids reacted with horror. It was a very dangerous moment.
And it was physically exhausting as well. I put everything that I had into it.
But luckily, Montgomery wasn't hurt. Still, he was hoping the take would make the final cut. Imagine my disappointment when that take wasn't used. Number 7. Another scene, another example of Daker Montgomery's commitment to giving it 200% each and every take. During the shower scene in season 3, Montgomery was so physically and emotionally invested that he didn't even realize he had covered himself in scrapes and bruises. He learned later on in the day when he took off his makeup and prosthetics to discover the injuries. One particularly gross memory he recounted was peeling the skin off the top of his toes.
I said, "Are you hurt?" What's going on? I heard screaming.
His commitment to his character is truly impressive. Number 8. Yet another emotionally taxing scene took place in season 2, when Eleven has a confrontation with Harbour.
We went through so many different emotions. We get angry at each other. We are like father and daughter.
It also sounded like the whole experience was therapeutic for the actors, as Brown stated that arguing wasn't limited to just on camera.
We got angry with each other and we would express our feelings on and off the set.
David Harbour also had a cathartic experience filming these emotionally demanding scenes.
It was a sort of unlocking in me as a human being of like a love that was human, but that was pure.
Number 9. Will's possession scene in season 2 wasn't the most fun experience for Noah Schnapp. He had to wear black contacts throughout the day of shooting, which burned his eyes. And he was nervous to have to perform the seizure part of the scene. It was really scary. You kind of just lock up, and I had to prepare for that. A lot. On top of this, it was actually pretty cold on set. The heaters you see didn't actually work to heat up the room. It was winter during shooting, and Noah's clothing was not optimal. And the cherry on top is that Noah joined the ranks of his co-stars as someone who lost their voice due to screaming during a scene. Number 10. When Eleven closes the gate during the season 2 finale, there is a lot of screaming and intensity. It was a difficult scene for Millie Bobby Brown to get through, as it required her to be lifted into the air on a crane while yelling non-stop. In between takes, Millie would have to recompose herself because the scene made her nauseous. I'd have to take a breather, throw up a little, then come back inside, do it again. Luckily for her, the ever-lovely David Harbour was right there by her side to help out, even offering her bracelets that supposedly would help her nausea. Number 11. Entering the void isn't as easy as Eleven makes it look. Millie Bobby Brown was actually floating in a pool filled with salt for this scene in season 1. It actually seems pretty peaceful, but it was a different story on set. It was freezing cold the day they shot this, and Millie had no help staying warm in that pool. The crew tried heating the pool, but it was to no avail, as it was too shallow to retain any of the heat. Fortunately for them, Millie was a trooper, braving the cold to get the scene done. Number 12. When Eleven is in Chicago with Kali and her gang, Kali puts the image of Papa into her mind, and Eleven is confronted by him. This was another very emotionally draining scene for Millie. She got so into it that even after cut was called, the emotions of the scene were still running through her. After filming was done, she went into the bathroom and cried for about 45 minutes. Number 13. A first kiss for anyone is nerve-wracking, let alone having to do it in front of cameras and an audience. Sadie Sink and Caleb Mclaughlin both had their first kiss during the school dance scene at the end of season 2. Sadie was actually told about the kissing scene the day before it was going to happen, as it was never in the script. The Duffer Brothers revealed they were initially joking when they told her, but decided to do the kiss for real when they saw how strongly Sadie reacted. To make things 1,000 times worse, there were a ton of people watching, just to guarantee maximum awkwardness.
First kiss was in front of 200.
I love it. Yeah,
and their parents, and the crew, and my mom.
Number 14. Sadie and Caleb weren't the only two that kissed that day. Right before they did their kissing scene, Finn Wolfhard and Millie Bobby Brown shared a kiss of their own. They had already kissed in season 1, but that didn't stop this moment from being very awkward. As we know, the set was full of people watching. On top of this, Wolfhard stated that the gym they were filming in was very hot. To make things even weirder, all the extras clapped after they kissed. Talk about uncomfortable. At least Wolfhard warned Millie before going for the kiss.
He was like, okay, I'm coming in.
Number 15. As we've learned, Millie Bobby Brown has done a lot of screaming during her time playing the character 11. However, season 3 was a particularly scream-filled season for Millie. She stated that she lost her voice 5 times over the 8 months she was filming. But just because filming was over didn't mean the screaming was too. Millie was brought back into the recording booth to record additional lines and dub over the ones she already did. This meant screaming all over again. I was screaming so much during the shoot.
Usually. But she doesn't like this voice.
It sure does sound like filming for Stranger Things was an intense experience. Did you know Millie Bobby Brown tore her kneecap while filming for Stranger Things Season 3 was still ongoing? It didn't happen on set, but did affect the production. She ended up needing a stunt double to fill in for a lot of her scenes.
This year we have taken the most time out of anyone, but it is the best season yet.
The Stranger Things cast and crew have had to deal with their fair share of incredibly painful prosthetics and costumes over the years, and season 4 is no stranger to that. It's one of the most painful seasons yet. Ready to find out why?
It's a dark, dark season for me.
Number 1. 9 hours in the makeup chair, plus 12 hours of acting, plus an hour and a half back out of makeup. You don't have to be good at math to know Jamie wasn't sleeping. Okay, 9 hours is exaggerating. While it initially took that long, they managed to get it down to 6 hours and 20 minutes with a team of 4, working on Jamie Campbell Bower non-stop. Jamie donned roughly 25 prosthetics that were glued to his skin every day. And the thing is, they weren't reusable. So they ended up having roughly 25 copies of 25 prosthetics. That's over 600 prosthetic pieces.
It's me underneath the prosthetics, it's my voice, it's me moving.
Barry Gower said, "We would spend the best part of 5 hours just purely gluing the appliances onto his skin. Then we'd have an hour and a half of airbrushing and joining all the dots together with the paintwork and airbrushing veins and blending everything." When Sadie Sink first saw him, she couldn't stop laughing because she was so creeped out and unsettled. The prosthetic was roughly 90% practical. The only thing added in post was those pulsing veins, so it makes sense why it freaked her out. Number 2. Teeny tiny ear holes make for difficult creature acting. Trying to get the voice for Vecna was problematic, thanks to the prosthetics. Jamie Campbell Bower said, "I was in ADR for the show a couple of weeks ago, and the engineer was like, 'I've got this octave for you.' By that, the engineer meant a voice distorter. Bower's response was, 'Oh no, we don't use that.' The engineer didn't believe him, and so he did the voice. And, so says Bower, the engineer said, 'Right, yep, I've canceled the octave of that, it's off now.' But it was much harder when they were filming versus being in the booth because the suit goes over the ears, and the ear holes are incredibly tiny. It was quite difficult and distorted trying to hear himself speak. Number 3. When will they leave Daker alone? Poor Daker Montgomery has been through some of the most horrific prosthetics experiences. He's basically fine, but he has spent his fair share of time in the makeup chair, and season 4 is no different. And we're not gonna lie, having your stomach completely wrapped in prosthetics with red goo dripping down you just does not sound like a fun time. Number 4. That feel when you quite literally work your butt off and they demand you put it back on. David Harbour is no stranger to extreme fluctuations in weight for roles. And Stranger Things brought in the starving prisoner Hopper. So when it came to flashback scenes, Harbour could not escape the weight he burned off and had to carry it around in the form of prosthetics. But you know what? He's proud of his dad bod. Number 5. It has to be seen to be believed. In order to save himself from being murdered by Vecna, Victor Creel gouged out his own eyes. The Gowers team designed the scarred eyelid prosthetics for the character, played by Robert Englund. Having limited access to your vision is enough to drive anybody insane. Number 6. What do you do when you can't use a safe word? Christopher Strand's mouth and eyes were sealed with prosthetics. The crew then drove him to the set and fastened him to the chair. Head of the makeup department, Amy L. Forsyth, said, "He couldn't see. He couldn't speak. All he could do was hear. When we were breaking for lunch, I was like, you better let him know he's done for the day before you call lunch, because he might just be sitting there thinking you're abandoning him." Not having access to all of your senses can cause unwelcomed reactions from actors, discomfort being the least of your concerns, and things like claustrophobia being high up on the list. So the makeup crew did their best to cater to his situation. Forsyth continued, "You ask them to be very communicative with you on their experience so that you can help make adjustments if need be. No one knows their comfort level like they do. Since Strand had both his eyes and mouth covered, the makeup team only asked yes or no questions to gauge if he was feeling okay." Number 7. Is this what heaven looks like? Because it sure feels a lot like the Upside Down. Wearing white contacts really limits your vision, and so anybody who entered that trance-like state could hardly see a thing. The whole room became a milky white color, and the costume department did their best to prepare the actors for their experience. Forsyth said, "I took a lot of videos of people putting their contacts in for the first time to get the reactions and try to make it a little fun experience for them." Number 8. Did nobody tell Gaten that he should bring sensible clothes camping? While Gaten Matarazzo is a huge fan of his costumes from the series, Season 4 being his favorite so far, he can't help but despise just one outfit he's worn over the years, saying, "I have to say, my least favorite look had nothing to do with the design. In fact, it's one of my favorites. But the camp outfit always felt really tight and tiny." He's referencing the Camp Nowhere episode from Season 3. Number 9. Would you prefer to be wet or sticky all day? Daker's dealing with sunburns when he's meant to be pale and is pale when he's meant to have color.
Amy from the hair department had all that fake tan.
This one was a pain for the makeup department because after he'd burned himself filming a pool scene, he had to film the shower scenes as the Mind Flayer and kept slamming his back against the wall, which would take off all the cover-up. And that isn't all. He was completely coated in a layer of sticky lip gloss in order to maintain that wet sheen, which he thinks is better than being wet all day. Number 10. That feel when you have no idea what you're doing, but you have to do it anyways. It reminds us of math class. Daker wore 33 prosthetic wounds for the post-sauna scene. And, problematically, when Millie Bobby Brown broke her knee, right as the shutdown was lifting, all of his scenes were moved up, meaning there was a rush order on all those prosthetics. The designer had no idea what she was even working with yet, and just created 50 different random wounds, hoping it would work out. They also asked if they wanted Billy to bleed red. Yes, said the director, who changed his mind in a few shots, which ended up being left to the VFX crew to fix in post. Number 11. Masking real wounds with fake ones. Daker had only so many prosthetics that he didn't even realize he'd bruised and cut himself all over the place. He only noticed after he removed them at the end of the day.
I was covered head to toe in cuts and bruises, and I took all the skin off the top of my toes.
Number 12. Sure, playing a creepy alien zombie monster is cool, in theory. The Demogorgon was played by actor Mark Steger in the first season of Stranger Things. However, it was so uncomfortable to try and maneuver around in, they replaced the real actor with CGI the following season. Number 13. Prosthetics are uncomfortable under the usual circumstances. In Season 2, when Billy beats the snot out of Steve, Steve was already feeling a little gooey. The guy was pretty sick, and to make matters worse, he had to have menthol blown into his eyes in order to get the desired look.
Oh, no, don't touch it, don't touch it.
His prosthetics included a swollen jaw lump, a cut split lip, and a mixture of cotton and dried blood. Oh, and real snot, apparently. Number 14. White contacts, black contacts, what's next? Will's black contacts made his eyes burn. And despite how warm everything looks on screen, it was actually very cold on set, and Will was not dressed for the weather. Number 15. This is a friendly reminder to wash your face. Nancy Dyer put makeup on to cover up her acne, and that caused more acne. Isn't it ironic? While not necessarily painful, it would play on her self-esteem. Ugh, we feel you, Nancy. All too well. From uncomfortable to irritating to painful to downright unbearable. The Stranger Things gang has experienced it all, huh?
I don't know, it's like ad-libbed or whatever. That whole thing is ad-libbed. This whole season's ad-libbed, by the way.
The stars of Stranger Things are definitely no strangers to the art of improv. This video is chocked full of every ad-lib, improvised moment, and mishap that were kept in the final cut of Season 4. Number 1. We know you're with us when we say finally.
This time, it's gonna be different.
We've been waiting for Joyce and Hopper to be reunited ever since he got taken by the Russian government. And clearly, so were Winona Ryder and David Harbour. According to a tweet from the Stranger Things writers, that kiss was totally unscripted. Winona and David added it in the day of filming. Though they weren't instructed to do so, it seems like they knew the fans needed that tender moment of reconciliation between the two characters. Number 2. We've got a tearjerker here. In this intense sequence, Max bravely entered Vecna's mind layer for the second time. But unfortunately, she didn't make it out alive. She collapses to the ground, bones broken, eyes bleeding, and has some heartbreaking final lines. Clearly, emotions were running high when Lucas, played by Caleb Mclaughlin, improvised the line where he calls out to his sister, Erica, for help.
It gives me chills. It was crazy.
Number 3. We're not crying, you're crying. In this super emotional scene, Eleven finally gets to hear how Mike really feels about her.
I love you for exactly who you are. You're my superhero.
Which gives her the strength to break free from Vecna's grasp and put up a fight. One thing you might not know is that Finn Wolfhard was incredibly nervous about that monologue.
Do this one more emotional, do it more confident. We just kind of did it a few different times.
He kept running through the lines over and over in his head, trying to be as off-book as he could. By the final take, the Duffer Brothers gave him permission to add whatever he wanted to it.
And they're like, add whatever you want. And so that, like, you're my superhero line, I just, like, added.
Number 4. Just more comedy gold from Joseph Quinn. In case you haven't noticed, we're big fans over here.
Harrington's got her. Don't you, big boy?
He definitely seems to have a knack for coming up with brilliant in-the-moment lines. Because of a tweet from a curious fan, we found out about this additional improvised moment. Did he improvise the "Don't you, big boy" at Steve in the camper van too? Just asking for a friend, at which the writers responded with a simple yes. Do you think there's a chance Eddie could return from the Upside Down? Give us your theories in the comments. Number 5. We love a good Stranger Things stunt. Charlie Heaton and his co-star Eduardo Franco had such a great time working together. Eduardo was constantly making Charlie laugh with his random, hilarious, unscripted one-liners. The scene where they're hitting golf balls together on top of a cliff had some strong comedic moments, but one, in particular, that was totally improvised was Charlie's dive through the van's window.
She was just like, there's all this tension, so I just decided to run and jump through the window.
Number 6. That really is a funny word, man. Charlie and Eduardo are truly a comedic dream team. They had such great on-screen chemistry that during many of their scenes, they were able to improv back and forth with each other. They spent about a week filming this scene in Argyle's van, bouncing lines off one another.
We got to play around with this. They gave us a lot of freedom to just riff off each other.
Number 7. Get ready to have your heartstrings pulled. Joseph Quinn made quite the impression as the infamous Eddie Munson. We particularly love his brotherly relationship with Gaten Matarazzo's character Dustin. Apparently, we weren't the only ones feeling the love. According to the writers of Stranger Things, the line, "I love you, man," was completely improvised by Quinn. Gaten's natural response of, "I love you too," definitely solidified the intense emotional ending.
I love you, man.
Number 8. Only in a demo fight.
If we try that again, we'll never be able to recreate it.
This is less of an improvisation and more of a mistake that was kept in the final cut. In this major scene, the Demogorgon takes on a group of prisoners, including our beloved Hopper. The Duffer Brothers really wanted to do this scene in one shot, but it proved to be too dangerous. Luckily though, they managed to get something on film they didn't even know they needed.
When the Demogorgon throws that guy and the bar collapses, that's actually a mistake.
But the Duffer Brothers thought the shot looked so cool and was captured so well that they decided to keep it the way it was. Number 9. More like an attempted save. We're all familiar with the big shootout scene that was done in one shot at the Byers house. Obviously, there are going to be some great behind-the-scenes stories about it. Apparently, Apparently, not only does the cast of Stranger Things love a good improvised moment on camera, but off camera is just as hilarious.
Oh my god, dude, we just did all that for nothing. Like,
it's your favorite memory?
No, it's coming.
There's a moment at the very end of the sequence where they're about to finish the take. They just need the last soldier to step inside the house and get shot. But during this take, he never makes it in. Everyone is pretty annoyed that they have to run the sequence again. But the stuntman lightens up the mood with a bit of improv.
A door gets kicked in, and the stunt guy's like...
Notably, everyone else is standing around in silent shock.
And then he got up and he was like, I think that went well.
Number 10. Just some casual heartbreak before you clock out. The scene where Max's bones are breaking as Lucas watches on helplessly was the end of quite a long day for the young actor. He was instructed to stare up and scream no, but due to the intense emotions of the scene and overall exhaustion after the fight with Mason Dye, who plays Jason, he stares up and yells Max instead.
But then when you see it all come together, it's like, oh, it was worth it.
In an interview with We Got This Covered, he talks a little bit about his experience in that moment. I don't really like to rehearse scenes like that because I want my natural reaction. I want to be real and raw in the moment. So I went off the cuff, just went for it. Of course, as we did more takes, it got better and felt more real. And it helped that the Duffer Brothers allowed me to improv and catch the energy of the scene. Number 11. Let's crank that exhaustion up to 11. We obviously can't forget these iconic Season 3 gems. It wouldn't be right to leave them out. One thing we knew about Millie Bobby Brown is that she's an insanely hard worker. She always gave 110% during the intense fight scenes with Daker Montgomery's character Billy, so much so that she often blew out her voice. On the day of filming the scene where she throws Billy through a brick wall, she was so exhausted by the end that her collapse into Mike's arms was 100% real. Finn Wolfhard even breaks character for a moment to look off at the director for guidance. Number 12. Oh, Mike, just tell her already.
What I want to say is that
A moment we absolutely love from Season 3 was Finn Wolfhard's improvised heart-to-heart scene with Millie Bobby Brown. This moment of rambling on in the attempt to get to an I love you was all Finn's brilliant improvisation. CBR.com recounts the moment really well. The spontaneity of Wolfhard's lines in this moment can be noticed when Brown tries her best not to laugh at them. Ultimately, her laughs were kept in the final cut because her reaction is true to her character.
We get terrified just watching Stranger Things, especially the 4th season. The actors who had to perform those freaky scenes had it much worse off, and we've got the scoop on just how brave they had to be to make these scary moments happen. Number 1. Run Max Run.
Yeah, it was pretty intense.
No kidding. We were freaked out just watching it. But to be performing that emotionally exhausting scene live, the fact that they spent so long doing it definitely didn't help.
That was shot over, I don't know how many, I think it might have been a week that we spent on that.
While the set wasn't nearly as big as what it looks like, and Sadie Sink filmed in a smaller, more controlled environment without details like the vines and such, it was all just enough to freak her out. And while it wasn't fun for her, it was great for the cameras. Number 2. Sometimes the scariest creatures are just below our noses. We're talking bullies. That's right. As scary as Vecna and the Demogorgon creatures of Volume 4 are, there is still something frightening about the meanness of a bully and just how cruel they can be.
A lot of the horror comes from the humans in the story, the darkness within all of us.
We've seen some real mean-spirited people in this show, and the fact that people can actually be that hurtful makes it that much scarier. Number 3. This was a one-shot wonder. For real.
This should feel real-time and viscerally connected.
This one-shot shootout battle made for a whole lot of planning.
It was gonna be hard. It was gonna be near impossible.
One intense choreo session that saw the director playing everyone's parts led to a scene that would be easy for the performers to act terrified during.
I do believe that the best way to feed my actors energy is by giving them energy.
If we were those actors, we would have been okay with just a bit less energy. Number 4. The Demogorgon is back, bigger and badder than ever. Would we expect anything less from this team?
Let's let this thing loose and see what it can do.
And that they did. The sequence was so intense to shoot, they actually had to break it down into 3 different parts, meaning the torture went on much longer than the performers would have liked. The stunt team that performed this wild sequence are trained professionals and have done freaky stunts before, but this scene was next level. Swinging upside down wildly definitely wouldn't be top of our list either. Number 5. This is the stuff that nightmares are made of.
Not like my goal is to make children not be able to sleep.
That's what he says, but the show? Well, it seems to indicate otherwise.
It's gonna be very exciting, very scary.
We've seen flashier monsters before, but with Vecna.
And we wanted something that was much more sentient.
When Millie Bobby Brown first came face to face with Jamie Campbell Bower in all his makeup, the actress was totally shook. So terrified that she just burst into tears and sobbed uncontrollably. We can't imagine who wouldn't be freaked out by Vecna.
Now we have an emotionally invested, motivated, and revenge-desiring character.
Number 6. This wasn't a casual swim. Yeah, seeing Steve dive so deep is freaky. But what's even more terrifying is the fact that it was the actor himself performing that stunt. The place of his nightmares was the giant water tank.
It was in a big convention center in Atlanta.
Luckily, Joe Kiri had been prepping and had anticipated swimming for the show in the first season.
And in the script, they're like, yeah, you're gonna be a swimmer.
And while it took 4 seasons to literally dive in, Kiri's prep helped him for sure. But it didn't take away all the nerves of filming such an intense sequence underwater.
Getting to do that sort of stuff is like true movie magic.
Number 7. It got real cold. Poor David Harbour went through the ringer filming Hopper's escape in Russia, since he had to immerse himself right into the tough stuff.
For a lot of it, I'm running shoeless, and it's really not pleasant.
The physical aspect was not fun at all, but what really shook the actor was how much it affected his psyche.
It was brutal, physically in that way, and it was also kind of brutal emotionally.
We've got a feeling he wouldn't want to go through that again. Number 8. The darkest season so far, that is. Season 4 has not disappointed.
Season 4, it was let's go Nightmare on Elm Street, let's go Hellraiser.
And now that the actors were a bit older, they weren't worried about pushing them as much, so things got intense.
For the first time for them, we wanted it to be really scary.
So what better way to get those terrified reactions than by actually terrifying the cast?
Let's just push this and try to be as scary as possible and put them in the middle of a true horror film.
Balancing the comedy with the horror was key for this season, making the big clashes and vibes even more evident.
It felt like right to go darker.
Number 9. She spun, and then, well, she nearly puked. When it came time to film the sequence that sees Eleven falling into Billy's memories, the actress had no choice but to perform the freaky stunt, leaving her totally nauseous and gagging. Physically, it was exhausting, and feeling all that while filming content that's supposed to be intense? Well, we can understand if she had some trouble sleeping afterwards. Number 10. Baths are supposed to be relaxing, but not in this show. Can anyone blame Francesca Real for being horrified while filming this scene? Well, the pool was scary for a few reasons. The actress shared that, "I hate any body of water that has a black bottom." And this pool, you guessed it, had a black bottom. But she wasn't alone in the pool. No. Real shared, "They had this amazing mechanism that attached to my foot, and whenever I was ready, I would go down underwater and the mechanism would tug me down." Yeah, we're not so sure we'd call that mechanism amazing. More like something that could potentially drown you. Number 11. Nothing about this sounds fun. We're throwing back to Season 2 and the attempts to get rid of the monster attached to Will, and to say it was traumatic is putting it lightly. Schnapp tried to remain professional throughout the process, but the struggle was real. He explained, "There were so many angles and shots that they had to do for each shot, you have to give it your all. So every angle, every different shot, it was just constantly screaming." Okay, so we can conclude the experience of filming this scene was equal parts terrifying and exhausting. Number 12. Say it ain't so? The reaction Will Byers' mom was having on the show, dealing with the loss of Will, was pretty close to what Noah Schnapp's actual mom experienced when the Duffer Brothers played quite the cruel and dark joke on her. The prosthetic Will body that's used as a fake in the first season was terrifyingly realistic, so we can understand why Schnapp's actual mom was shook when she first saw it. Fortunately, she found the joy in it soon enough and wound up taking photos with the dummy. Number 13. Being trapped underwater is usually terrifying. The nerves we feel just thinking of all of Eleven's time spent in the tank facing terrifying images every time are real. So we can only begin to imagine the kind of nightmares Millie was having since she was actually filming underwater, with only a Sea Trek helmet in place that allowed her to breathe. If she weren't afraid of drowning before, we wouldn't be surprised if she was after this. Number 14. If you know, you know.
I'm terrified if anything happens.
Demogorgons are terrifying, we know that for sure. But for toddlers that were hanging around on set for the first season, well, they were fully unsettled. Even Millie was freaking out on the inside.
I'm frightened about everything.
Since they did have to get through filming, one of the grown-ups on set tried to help the actors through it by telling them it was the same monster they knew from Monsters, Inc. A surprising comparison, but it worked for the kids. Number 15. They didn't know what hit them. These young actors faced their fears time and time again in the early years. But for season 4 to truly frighten them, well, it's not something they anticipated.
Definitely exceeded my expectations with how scary they could go.
But just how scary would they say it is?
Oh, definitely an 11.
Yeah, we'll stay on this side of the screen.
Most metal
Do you ever wonder what's really going on in the actors' minds as they film intense scenes in Vecna's mind layer? Or play Metallica on guitar while a horde of killer bats approach? Yeah, stick around, we got you. Number 1. Get ready for a whole new meaning of death metal. Joseph Quinn goes through so much when playing the infamous Eddie. But for an afternoon in season 4, he gets to have quite a bit of fun as a rock star. Prior to reading the script, Joseph received a text from the Duffer Brothers asking if he could play guitar.
They kind of texted me during the hiatus being like, can you play guitar? And I said yes. ? Nothing.
He had no idea what they had in store until much later. His reaction after reading the script
And I was just like, are you kidding?
was much different after seeing the sequence play out.
It feels earned and it feels fun and it feels like the perfect crescendo for this crazy sequence.
Number 2, get that Kleenex ready. This is a super emotional scene for Joseph Quinn. And for everyone to watch. Quinn thinks it's a delicate way of giving Eddie some well-deserved justice.
The pill that people are kind of finding hard to swallow is the fact that people don't know that he dies a hero.
Of course, though, would we rather have our guy Eddie alive and well?
It's very touching, but it's still not right.
Number 3. We're jumping in right along with you, Steve. Joe Kiri, for the first time, gets to show off all of the swim training he did for the show.
Like, I was paying for all this stuff, and then I showed up, and they're like, oh no, yeah, we cut that. We couldn't get a pool.
In this scene, Joe gets to plunge into a 40-foot tank built entirely for this moment.
Getting to do that sort of stuff is like true movie magic.
Number 4. Sadie Sink barely made it out of this one. Her performance is nothing short of incredible. But what was it like from her perspective?
A lot of time spent in the harness, I guess.
She really got to have the full experience on this set because most of the pieces were created by the art department.
I feel like this is the most elaborate form of harnessing that I've ever done.
We also can't forget how creepy Vecna was. His look is almost fully practical.
Which kind of, made it easier for me so I'm not like staring at a man in a green suit.
Number 5. Stancy, anyone? We haven't gotten to see Steve and Nancy together in quite a while. So it was really exciting to see their dynamic after all the characters' growth they've undergone. Not only that, but Joe Kiri was also pumped to work with Natalia Dyer again.
It's fun to work together again, actually, because we haven't really worked together in a long time.
Though they couldn't give us any information regarding the future of their relationship. Natalia did make it clear that the show wants to portray two people who truly care about each other. Number 6. We take a visit to the country club for this one.
Go, ándale,
Really?
ándale, arriba, let's go.
The scene where Jonathan and Argyle are shooting golf balls into an abandoned junkyard was one of Charlie Heaton's favorite scenes to shoot in season 4. He and Eduardo actually had to take golfing lessons beforehand.
The costume gave us these very yuppie, golfing outfits to go head up to this country club in.
They were surprised by how difficult just hitting a golf ball could really be.
So So yeah, we had a lot of practice trying to hit these balls, which were ridiculously hard.
Eduardo was also constantly making Charlie laugh and throwing out brilliant one-liners that weren't in the script. Because of their natural chemistry, they ended up creating some hilarious moments. When Charlie runs and jumps through the window of the van, that wasn't actually in the script.
Me and Eduardo were just building each other up so much. It was just like, there's all this tension, so I just decided to run and jump through the window.
Number 7. Is this Stranger Things or Scooby-Doo?
Okay, there's a Scooby-Doo shot.
Oh yeah.
This scene, though it looks super cool and high-end, was actually filmed inside a warehouse. In true Stranger Things fashion, everything you see was built completely by the art department. Heaton, Joe, and Maya loved filming there.
I have a great memories about shooting this.
Me
So this
too.
was like a really fun day.
And not so different from his character, Steve, Joe Kiri gets to save a few lives in between takes.
Remember when you saved my life?
Maya Hawke almost took an unfortunate tumble off the edge of the set.
There was like gaps in the thing where the laser was supposed to be.
And I
she
like took
nearly...
a foot off of it.
And Joe, in true Steve Harrington fashion, immediately grabbed her and pulled her back up. Number 8. A hospital visit might be necessary after this one. This intense scene was shot over the course of 2 days, about 14 hours of filming. That moment where Charlie Heaton slams a vase into Tom's face needed some extensive rehearsal.
Had to rehearse that so many times, safely, to get the choreography.
Michael Park, who plays Tom, was a great sport about it though.
One time you really got it.
I know, really. He said if you hit him harder, it's gonna hurt less.
Michael was willing to take as many hits as he needed for the sake of the scene. At one point, his entire ear was red from being slammed so hard.
Owie.
Due to the number of breaks they had to take to set up for different angles, they had to sort of psych themselves up to be in that intense, heightened state that the scene requires.
That also feels really nice to come home from a day's work and feel like you've put your body through like the ring.
Number 9. We've all got one. David Harbour isn't shy about the way he feels working with the kids of Stranger Things.
More feel like an angry uncle, I guess, like just a grumpy, annoyed neighbor.
Though he may not feel like a parent on set, he did find his protective side coming out. Because of that, he says that he was much harder on them than others might have been.
On a serious tip, I mean, I am very protective of those kids.
Number 10. Who knew playing a board game could be so nerve-wracking? It'd be impossible for Finn Wolfhard and Caleb Mclaughlin to forget shooting this scene. Mostly because it was the very first one they ever did. Both of them were insanely nervous the day of. Caleb even got sick because of it.
We were all, I think, just really just scared because we had no idea, we didn't have any rehearsal or anything.
Luckily though, nerves definitely became a lot calmer. So calm, in fact, that the guys couldn't stop laughing.
It took us a while to get that scene done, but it was so much fun.
Number 11. Cue up a never-ending story.
Yeah, that was also just such a weird scene.
It was.
Although we're always down to hear Sadie Sink's incredible vocal skills, she thought the scene was a bit odd because of all the heartache that happened earlier in the episode.
Max's brother just died, and then I saw that in the script, and I was like, what's going on? Now we're just singing and dancing.
Regardless, she was happy to have a lighthearted moment to balance out all the heavy emotions. Number 12. We're still not over it. This is a bittersweet scene for the cast. A great day on set for Finn Wolfhard is getting to do scenes with the entire cast.
Usually in those big group scenes, we're all just really happy because we all get to just do a scene together and hang out.
But in this case, happiness was definitely not the prime emotion.
I was pretty emotional that day.
That was one of the final scenes that were shot for season 3. So, in a way, we're actually getting to watch authentic goodbyes among the cast.
In a way, you're actually saying bye.
Yeah, and it was felt natural to hug everyone.
Yeah.
There are so many incredible stories and emotions hidden behind the Stranger Things moments. Sometimes you forget how hard the actors have to work to give them to us.
Can you please not touch anything?
Part of the fun of working on a set is finding what you can take home afterwards. While it's not always the best practice, the Stranger Things actors have done their fair share of swiping from the set, keeping special props and costume pieces from the show with the hope that they won't get caught. Which actor stole the most items from set? Let's do some investigating.
I've thought about stealing things and never have. I'm a good boy.
Oh my god.
See?
Number 1. Who wants to go for a roll? Thanks to his sticky fingers, Noah Schnapp can go roller skating anytime he wants with his very own pair of 80s style Stranger Things roller skates.
I'm so bad at this, I'm like Bambi on ice.
No, you're good. But he wasn't shy about taking them. The actor explained, I brought the roller skates home. I had everyone sign them and then took them home with me. Okay, we've got to be honest. That's an epic set steal, and if we had a chance at getting a signed pair of roller skates from this cast, well, we'd be all over it. Number 2. Millie had a bloody good time on the set of Stranger Things.
My blood that I put in my nose.
For real though, how many times do we think she had to perform nosebleeds on the set? If blood made her squeamish before, she'd certainly faced her fears and gotten real comfortable with it. So comfortable that she wanted to make sure she had some with her, even when she wasn't on set. That seems to be the only logical reason as to why Millie would have stolen a small vial of Eleven's fake blood to keep in her memento box. This is one she'll never forget, that's for sure. And we hope she doesn't forget that she stole it, otherwise that discovery could be a bit freaky.
I have a memory box where I keep all my lipsticks from every award show I went to, my envelope from the MTV Awards, and then the blood from Stranger Things.
Number 3. Keeping cozy is worth stealing for. Sadie Sink has been pretty good about not taking too many things from set, but she just couldn't leave without bringing something with her.
It wasn't like a costume, it was just like a warming jacket from wardrobe. It has like...
You took the jacket?
She even caught Noah by surprise. And while it is suspect, Sink has explained that this wasn't a purposeful swipe, but not everyone seems totally convinced.
Again, accidentally.
No, but like, accidentally.
Number 4. It would have been pretty easy to leave the set with these costume pieces. We have no doubt Noah Schnapp makes a decent paycheck doing Stranger Things, so we are a bit confused that he felt compelled to steal this particular costume piece.
I took a bunch of underwear, but that's really it.
They must have been comfy, no doubt. We wonder if anyone from set noticed he'd become an underwear thief. Number 5. Shoplifting ain't cool, Millie. But does it really count if it's a fake mall?
On Stranger Things, I took...
She went full tilt in the Starcourt Mall, having a full-on shopping spree on set, without any money involved, of course.
It was definitely a set store, but I did take like corduroy jeans and a stripy red and blue t-shirt.
And while it might have been a fake Gap store, the clothes were real and they looked good. No wonder she kept that stuff for herself. Number 6. It seems like Millie was a bit desperate. What other explanation could there be for her stealing such a small and random item from the set? Or maybe she was just trying to be like Noah.
I took a lot of socks.
Any guesses on whether or not Noah stole more underwear or Millie stole more socks?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
We'll never know, but we can imagine the wardrobe department wasn't too impressed with having to replace all those stolen necessities. Number 7. We've got our eyes on you, Caleb. When it came time to talk about what he swiped from set during an interview, Caleb Mclaughlin was pretty strategic about it. Luckily, he saved himself from letting any spoilers slip, but he also outed himself pretty obviously. We know he stole something, but whatever it was continues to remain a mystery.
Accidentally, I took something from set from season 3.
We wonder if he ever got caught. Number 8. He looks pretty suspicious. Is it just us, or does Noah look like he got caught in the hot seat?
We move on.
Right.
Never took it.
Okay, so we've established there is an it that he stole, but what could it be? Since Sadie Sink gave the actor a look indicating it's not something Noah should probably talk about, it seems like his lips are sealed. We won't push it. But we just can't help but wonder what memento he snuck off set with. And we doubt he's talking about the underwear in this case. Number 9. For real though.
I did a show called Intruders when I was 9 years old.
She may have been young, but even early on, Millie knew that you've got to take advantage of being on set by keeping any cool things you can.
I took a lighter from the set.
It was a prop being used on set, but of all things, why did she need it? What did she plan to do with it? The special lighter from Intruders wound up going into her memento box with souvenirs from other productions. That lighter could always help her find her light, that's for sure. Number 10. Finn Wolfhard might have some answers on this one. When he was filming Ghostbusters, there were plenty of opportunities to snag all the ghost-busting materials. But that wasn't what appealed to the actor.
I kept some shoes that I wore on the new Ghostbusters movie.
Hey, if the shoes were good enough for ghost busting, then why not stick to them? While he did swipe the shoes, generally, Wolfhard is pretty good and hasn't actually stolen much from set. When asked if he'd taken anything from the Stranger Things set, he very openly shared that he's never stolen anything from that set in particular, for fear that the production team would end up needing whatever he stole at some point, and then he'd be found out. That said, he has confessed to wishing he stole the Ritchie glasses from the movie It.
There's stuff that I regret that I didn't keep. Like, I wish I kept the Ritchie glasses.
And who knows? There is hope that maybe he'll get them in future.
You never know, maybe I could get those back.
Number 11. When you know, you know. Any fans of Enola Holmes will know that Millie formed a very special bond on set with one of her, well, her Dash.
I took Dash, which you will see.
This set swipe definitely makes sense, and she was the title character, so we guess Millie had some leeway in terms of what she could keep from set for herself.
Extraordinary.
While she did swipe it, she had said before that it was a gift, but no one has confirmed that fact either. What we do know is that Dash isn't the only thing Millie kept from the Enola Holmes set. Number 12. Millie's got the tools.
And a corset.
I must become something unexpected.
The Stranger Things actress has spent plenty of time in a harness doing stunts for the sci-fi show. But in Enola Holmes, she was dealing with a very different kind of restriction. And instead of being glad about saying farewell to a typically uncomfortable and annoying costume piece, Millie wanted to keep her corset for herself. Maybe she wanted to remind herself of the struggle she endured while filming, or it could just be that she loved getting her posture in check, and that corset will certainly do the trick. Being so young, these movies and shows are a pretty formative part of the Stranger Things actors' lives, so it makes sense they'd want to keep these mementos from their various projects. Whether they were kept for practical reasons or just the memories, everyone seems pretty cool with the practice of swiping some stuff from set, even if it does have to be kept a secret for a while to make sure no one gets in trouble.
Stranger Things is a pretty nasty show containing a ton of gooey prosthetics and farty boys that are smelly enough to evacuate a bus several times over. Ready to find out who the worst offender was? Number 1, we're kicking it off with something sticky. Actually, pretty much everything in this list consists of sticky things. That would have been a good alternate title for the show. Putting on gross, nasty prosthetics and seeing yourself in the mirror is one thing. Taking off gross, nasty prosthetics is a much stranger thing. But we've got to admit, playing around with prosthetic goo does look pretty satisfying. Slimy, yet satisfying, as Simba would say. Number 2. Beards are gross in general. Go clean shaven, boys. Kidding. A nice beard can do wonders for the jawline. In the case of David Harbour, he had way more than just a beard, and it did the opposite for his jaw. He had to get suited up in a prosthetic that reflected the weight he was in season 3 for the flashback scene. So that means that that neck isn't real. That's a fake beard with fake beard hair. Oh boy, that's a little strange. Downright uncomfy. Harbour can't stand prosthetics, but the process for this one was pretty painless thanks to an awesome team. Number 3. Oh dear, what direction could we possibly go with this? Turns out that lube has more than one purpose. It's great for maneuvering in prosthetics. Jamie Campbell Bower had the honor of slicking up for Vecna. The product isn't just great for prosthetics though. Did you know your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man had to use lube to get into his Spidey suit in No Way Home? Or at least Tom Holland did at any rate. Oh, to spend an entire day slimy just sounds like a nightmare. Number 4. And now for the most disgusting thing on this whole list. Kissing. Matt Duffer acknowledged that it was easy to forget how young Millie was sometimes because she's so incredibly gifted for her age. Well, her age would shine through sometimes, of course, like when it came to kissing Finn Wolfhard in season 1. There was a 2-month build-up to that scene for Millie, about just how disgusting and horrible it was going to be, and she questioned the whole time why the Duffers wrote it in. That definitely reminded them that she was only 11 years old, not the character. Well, that too. She survived, though. Number 5. Lego my ego, I'm gonna be sick. After being spun around and around and around in one scene in the void, poor Millie lost her egos. We can't say we blame her. That looks intense. In a post, she captioned it, "You spin me right round, baby, right round. Ah!" Threw up after this. This isn't the first time Millie's thrown up on set either. At least, so the Duffer Brothers thought. She was pretty bold in season 1 to prank the creators.
Yeah. And we pretended that I was really sick and we put water in my mouth.
And then she started puking up the water. Classic. Number 6. A glossy finish that still manages to look just terrible. Daker was covered head to toe in lip gloss to achieve that flayed look. Not just lip gloss though. Also dirt and mud. Not just lip gloss, dirt, and mud, but also an extra layer of lip gloss to seal it all together. Ugh, sounds like a party. Number 7. Millie's nosebleeds are pretty wild. So before the scene starts, she has to pour the fake blood up her nose. They immediately start filming and basically hope for the best as far as timing goes. Fun fact, that's the reason she tips her head down when she's using her powers. To get the goo moving. There are 2 kinds of fake blood. Well, probably a lot more, but 2 different categories of fake blood. There's the kind you wear, and the kind that goes inside your body. For Millie's nosebleeds, she was using corn syrup. Number 8. We're not done with the internal goo yet though. The edible blood that is usually consumed via the mouth and not the nose has to be made safe for the actor. And well, one thing you don't have to worry about when it comes to noses is taste. But the mouth is a whole other story. The edible blood tastes pretty freaking disgusting. But as Stranger Things progressed, their concoctions got a little tastier. It's just an added gesture from the makeup team to make the fake blood taste better. Among the options for flavor are Emergency and Jell-O. Number 9. While this might seem like a delectable treat to most, Noah Schnapp was having none of it. Along the lines of the bloods, there's sometimes a need for discoloration, and head of makeup Amy Forsyth wanted Will Byers to look ill, so they faded out the color on his tongue. You'd think green food coloring and frosting wouldn't be such a bad combination, but turns out Schnapp hates frosting. Hey, you can't please everyone. For all the torture Forsyth put Will through with frosting, he was given permission to enact his revenge, and got to spray Amy with a super soaker. Number 10. Caffeine is always the answer. David Harbour is coated in mud. Sorry, not mud, sticky espresso grounds that the makeup team stole right from the espresso maker in the trailer. And the recipe had to be exact. No substitutions. Coffee just isn't good enough. It has to be espresso. And Hopper was covered in mud a lot in season 2. While Harbour was a good sport about it, Amy said he was happy for the hot towel at the end of the day. Number 11. Sometimes it isn't the gross prosthetics. Sometimes it's the actors themselves being gross. Filming in a bus isn't normally a sign of alarm, unless one of the boys is so gassy the bus has to be evacuated. More than once. Poor Millie was furious with her stinky co-star. It's never been revealed who cut the cheddar, which is very kind of them to keep it under wraps, we guess. But this wasn't an isolated event. David Harbour admitted they would sometimes fart during takes. Yep. Kids. Little human beings with big important jobs farting during takes. I won't say which one. Number 12. Eating cold burgers and fries is definitely not as satisfying as eating cold pineapple pizza. Yes, way back in season 1, Millie was eating cold burgers and fries. A lot of cold burgers and fries. Like a lot. Like too much for an adult male to stomach, let alone a 10-year-old girl. We mean like at least 3 burgers in a single sitting. Poor Millie. They always encourage actors to eat healthy, and then they do this to them. Number 13. That feel when they get you when you're down. Poor Joe Kiri had to film while sick. This was more common before the days of the dreaded pandemic. He was super stuffed up to begin with, but then to get the redness in his eyes, they blew menthol into them. Ouch. He was already a gooey, snotty mess before the staged beating came into it. He also had to have prosthetics applied to his face. He had a swollen jaw lump, a cut split lip, and a mix of cotton and dried blood. Here's hoping the appendages were sneeze resistant. Number 14. Eggos are actually just the worst when you eat them straight out of the box. We recommend a flamethrower. Whenever you see actors eating food in a movie, just know they were in for a miserable few hours, because one Eggo on screen is like 2 dozen in front of the camera. We bet Millie will never look at Eggos the same way again. Number 15. Was this one more disgusting for the actors or for us? Definitely us. The leg you're looking at isn't even Millie's in this scene. It was totally just prosthetics, all decked out with different layers of yuck. Luckily, the moving mind flayer was added in post-production, and wasn't some creepy animatronic below the surface. Honestly, we couldn't stomach if it were any more real than it already is. While the disgusting blob of rat bodies that merged to become a monster would have made a great addition to this list, if you haven't already figured it out, only the animators were tortured with that job.
When you're in the Upside Down, things can get kind of crazy, so you know there were embarrassing moments on the Stranger Things set. Who unintentionally interrupted scenes? Which actor was the best jokester? But before we dive in, you should probably subscribe to our new channel, The Things Animated, to get all the hidden secrets and unique theories behind your favorite animated movies and shows. Number 1. Sometimes you get what's coming to ya. Noah Schnapp didn't know what hit him, but it was a long time coming since...
well, he's the biggest prankster of them all.
Schnapp wound up embarrassing plenty of co-stars through practical jokes, so while filming season 4, it was time he got a taste of his own medicine. Let's set the scene.
So it was 4 a.m, we were in New Mexico.
Schnapp was busy filming while Millie Bobby Brown and the team got to work.
We had trash bins filled with water balloons all around, and we turned all the lights off at base camp.
Brown lured Noah over with her excellent acting skills.
Noah, I'm just so upset that, you're not here to say goodbye to me. Please just come back to base camp. I'm leaving now.
When his best friend needs him, he'll be there. But instead of finding a teary-eyed Millie, he got a whole crew taking revenge on him.
And I get him in the middle of the car park. All of us, about 20 people, raid him.
This cast does not mess around with their practical jokes. Number 2. Their lips were sealed.
And I'm not gonna name names because it's pretty embarrassing.
In the early days, filming on the bus got a bit stuffy, and one person was left feeling real embarrassed.
Somebody farted on the bus we were filming in, and we had to clear out for about 20 minutes.
But that's not the worst of it. There wound up being 2 performers trying to avoid being called out.
And then we got back on after like 20 minutes of airing the thing out, and somebody else farted.
It was a smelly mystery, that's for sure.
And tried to blame it on the initial perpetrator.
That said, filming that day happened to be one of Gaten Matarazzo's absolute favorites. We wonder if he's keeping any secrets.
We still don't know who that second part was.
Number 3. This one ended in tears. Yikes. Noah Schnapp and Millie Bobby Brown wound up being the ones embarrassed after playing this joke on one of the crew members that went a bit too far. The actors were bored on set one day and decided to give the crew member a ring, pretending to be the manager of the venue where their wedding was meant to take place just 2 weeks later. They thought it would be funny to tell her that they had to cancel the rezo because of construction, but they were mortified when that crew member wound up bursting into tears instead. You can bet the two were blushing all day after that joke gone wrong. Number 4. He's coming in.
There were like 200 people in the room just staring at them.
Finn Wolfhard went ahead and made his very first kiss with Millie Bobby Brown on screen super awkward.
Coming in.
Looking back, Finn isn't so crazy about the scene.
It looked like I was eating her. I was like, ah!
Was he hoping Millie would feel better about the kiss that way? Luckily, that day was probably the worst of it, and it became a less embarrassing process as they went on.
I will say this, we've progressed.
Number 5. The accents can be tricky. Charlie Heaton is always professional, and his American accent is on point, but funnily enough, he has a whole lot of trouble with one name. And it's one he really should be able to say. They've dated on and off screen, so the fact that Heaton really struggles to say the name Nancy properly leaves him blushing constantly on set. To make matters worse, he actually had to come in for separate recording sessions to re-record anytime he said Nancy so it sounded right in the final edit. Number 6. This is never not awkward, but it's especially bad when it happens to be your first kiss in real life too.
I mean, I guess technically it would be the one that was in Stranger Things.
To make it all worse, Caleb Mclaughlin and Sadie Sink were not expecting it. There wasn't a word about this happening in the script or talks beforehand, but the day of, the actors were put on the spot and the pressure was on.
There's a lot of kids just like, ooh, you're gonna kiss her.
Poor Sadie Sink also had to deal with the fact that her mom happened to be there to witness it all. Has there ever been a more embarrassing first kiss scenario?
In front of like so many people? Yeah, that was it.
Number 7. Clothing in the 80s was different. Finn Wolfhard had a real hard time when he was handed a classic pair of tighty-whities a la 80s for him to wear in case his underwear was showing from under his pants on the show. The actor was so embarrassed at the thought, he didn't even give them a chance, insisting to his co-stars, "I'm not wearing these. I'm just gonna wear my real things. My real underwear." Number 8. You do what you gotta do. That's the motto that Mclaughlin has learned to roll with being part of the Stranger Things cast. He was very excited to film the scene early on that saw him sneaking up on his pal, but then this happens. That part wasn't so fun, but he was always a professional about it despite his feelings.
As an actor, you do it, you do it, you do it. You love the art, you do it. And that's why I did it.
Number 9. It's a look. Playing a kid in the 80s isn't all it's cracked up to be, especially in the hair department.
Season 3, it was this huge wig, and season 4, it was these little extensions.
And Noah Schnapp never knew what he was going to get from the wig team. What he could guarantee was the fact that he'd be real embarrassed to be wearing those wigs on set no matter what he was given. Number 10. No one wants to call attention to themselves this way. Remember the smelly situation that happened on the bus? Well, it happened again in the series, but instead of distracting everyone with the stench, it was a fully audible situation. Mclaughlin was the guilty one in this case, and it was much harder to get out of since the whole set was pretty quiet and Gaten Matarazzo had been right next to him, meaning he heard everything. Matarazzo struggled to keep his cool, explaining, "We were dying, but we couldn't laugh out loud because they were doing a really dramatic scene in there." Talk about awkward timing. Number 11. Mclaughlin is even more talented than we thought. When it comes to multitasking, this actor is king. Always a jokester on set, he decided to see what would happen if, during the middle of a take, he blew his nose while eating an apple at the same time. Don't ask us why he did it. It seems like he was just moved to spice things up. No one understood what he was doing, and he did make a bit of a fool of himself, but it worked out well since on camera it was pretty hilarious. Number 12. Maintaining composure is tougher than you'd think.
It was 4 like 12-year-olds all together drinking Coca-Cola and eating old pizza.
Yeah, that just sounds like a recipe for disaster.
For 6 hours.
Filming playing games together was a pretty childlike vibe, and the team did encourage a chilled environment so they could get the very best out of the kids. But it was still pretty high-strung. Who can blame them though? It was the very early days.
What better day to have the giggles than your first day at work for the first scene of the first season?
Number 13. What's in a name, really? Well, in this one, there's a whole lot. We know him as Mclaughlin, but on set, he's known as Chocolate Daddy. Okay, at least that's what he refers to himself as on set. And while it's cool in the moment, the actor wasn't so crazy about the world knowing after he let the secret slip during an interview. Number 14. To be late is to be fired. Yikes. Millie Bobby Brown has regularly proven she's an absolute professional in the business, but she didn't leave such a great impression when she showed up to the set for filming Stranger Things a full hour late. And since she's one of the stars, it didn't affect just her. The whole production schedule was thrown off. We can't imagine she was too proud of that one. Number 15. You never know which word will throw you off. For David Harbour, it was...
It's your grandma.
The actor, usually oh so calm, cool, and collected, was the embarrassment of the day as he turned out blooper after blooper after blooper, unable to get through the scene without breaking character. With this crew, it was hard not to laugh.
Hurt is good. It means you're out of that cave.
Today we're checking out all the painful scenes the Stranger Things cast had to film. From vomiting to slingshots in the face, this young cast was put through the ringer.
It's been an experience of a lifetime.
Number 1. Millie Bobby Brown had a serious case of FOMO. Millie found season 4 to be the hardest one yet for filming because she had such a dark plot in contrast to her co-stars, and found she was separated from them a lot.
It's a harder script, it's a harder storyline.
While that is pretty normal for Stranger Things, she could see Flynn and some of the others having fun on set, getting to do the more lighthearted, comedic work, and she just didn't get to be a part of it. And when you grow up with your co-stars and they're your best friends, that's rough. Millie said, "You get to see Eleven in the darkest state she's ever been. This has definitely been the hardest season I've ever filmed. There have been some of the scariest things that I've ever seen as a human." Number 2. Well, it wasn't its intended purpose, but it works. To shoot the scenes where Steve is beat up, Joe Kiri was already feeling sick and had to have menthol blown into his eyes to achieve the desired redness.
Which is fun to look at and probably less fun to be in.
Listen, Vicks Vapo Rub contains menthol, and what is Vicks for? A stuffy nose. So we're pretty sure that's the excuse they went with when Joe accidentally put it in his eye. Hey, if it was intentional, maybe it helped clear his sinuses. Number 3. Joe wasn't the only one vomiting. The A Pluribus Unum episode had Eleven in the void, struggling to break free from Billy's grasp. Well, as she fell away, she twirled around. For this stunt, Millie was attached to a rig that spun her in circles. Millie admitted, "Physically, it was so unbelievably challenging for me."
Are you okay?
I'm okay.
After a few takes, it's no surprise that this made Millie throw up afterwards. She posted about it with the caption, "You spin me right round, baby, right round. Threw up after this." Number 4. Millie was really spinning before, but now it's just her head that's spinning. Shooting inside the sauna was tough on the whole cast and crew.
I think I just threw up in my mouth.
But it seems Millie took the most of the heat. They spent 4 full days on a tiny stage, practically the size of a real sauna. With 6 actors and about 100 crew, it was squishy. And it was super hot. And they shot the scene a million different ways. The scene gone wrong is the scene that made it into the show. When she collapsed into Finn Wolfhard's arms, that was due to real exhaustion. You can even see Mike break character slightly as he looks over for help. Number 5. Millie might find it too warm, but we're gonna stick around. It's quite nice in this sauna. Daker Montgomery went a little bit too extreme and smashed his head against the sauna's glass.
You think this is funny?
The headbutt was totally improvised and, sadly, didn't make it into the final shot. Number 6. Let's just say there's a reason schools don't allow kids to have slingshots. Slingshots are not toys. They are weapons meant for taking out the creepy upside-down monsters, and that's it. Well, Caleb Mclaughlin clearly didn't get the memo and hit himself in the face instead.
No! Ah!
Number 7. We imagine Millie was feeling that FOMO around this time, too. Millie Bobby Brown split open her kneecap before filming Stranger Things Season 3, so she couldn't do many stunts or even too much strenuous movement, which included riding a bike, and as we know, the cast happens to do that a lot. Number 8. The Prosthetics King. Daker had to wear 33 prosthetics for a time. And you know what that means? So did his stunt double. That's a lot of prosthetics. At one point, it was so hot and sticky out that Daker got himself stuck to the tablecloth while he was on lunch. And because of Millie's knee injury, Daker's scenes got moved up, which put a lot of pressure on the makeup crew to get the prosthetics designed efficiently. Sacrifices had to be made. Time over quality.
We had great fun, because I would spend like 2 hours every day getting hair and makeup done.
And the prosthetics had such an impact on him that he realized his body hair wasn't growing back in certain patches. But that isn't all that was underneath the prosthetics. Daker didn't realize he'd been roughed up as bad as he had been until he took off all his fake injuries to reveal real ones underneath. Daker admitted, "I was covered head to toe in cuts and bruises, and I took all the skin off the top of my toes. I just kind of invest in it." Number 9. While Schnapp may have looked sweaty, the only thing that was burning was his eyes. Noah Schnapp's black contacts seriously made his eyes fiery. But that wasn't the only thing that made filming his possession scene tough. It was winter in real life, and his costume was not good for the weather. And the heaters you can see in the show weren't generating any real heat. Ugh, what a tease. Number 10. Why couldn't she have just landed a comedy or even a simple drama would do? The best way to ruin your acting career is to obliterate your vocal cords. Millie had to scream so much on Stranger Things that she lost her voice 5 times in 8 months. But she also had to go back in for ADR, and so lost it all over again. We wonder if this halted production, or if they knew these screams would need healing time, and worked the schedule around them. Number 11. Poor Demogorgons. Deep down, they're just a guy in a seriously uncomfortable situation. The Demogorgon prosthetic outfit was tough for Mark Seeger to navigate. He had to do some really difficult stunts in it, but what made it so problematic was his sight was super restricted too. It was so tough to pull off that eventually they decided to go with CGI instead.
It had to do things that a practical guy in a suit just can't do.
Number 12. Noah, more screaming, or your vocal cords might schnapp. We'll see ourselves out. Millie wasn't the only one destroying her vocal cords. During one long night shoot, Noah had to scream with everything he had until 6 a.m. for the exercising scene. Because, of course, Stranger Things likes to get a million different angles. Number 13. We would rather face a Demogorgon than get in a cold pool. Millie Bobby Brown was submerged in freezing cold water for the suspension scene. Despite the crew's best efforts to keep the water warm, it was just too shallow and got cold too quick. Number 14. We never really thought of filming like Groundhog Day before, but it really is in some regards. Joe Kiri found the breakup scene he had to shoot with Natalia to be overwhelming, as he hadn't quite perfected the process of letting go of his character once the camera stopped rolling. To be broken up with again and again and again was incredibly tough for him. Number 15. Don't cry. If you cry, then I'm gonna cry, and if we're all crying, who's gonna comfort us? In that incredibly emotional goodbye scene in which the whole cast of kids needed to somehow manage to bring themselves to tears, they found they didn't need to rely on sad music or menthol in the eyes. Just the thought of actually saying goodbye one day was enough to do it. A reality that is coming too quickly, if you ask us. Millie mentioned that one of the cast of kids proposed, "Imagine if we had to do this for real one day. What if, when Stranger Things is over, we'll all have to say goodbye to each other and, like, this is it?" And then everyone started crying, and they got the shot. The only thing more painful than any of these moments will be coming up at the end of season 5, the end. We're not ready to think about that yet. Distraction technique. Do you think Millie Bobby Brown is going too method with her acting? Or do you think her level of intensity is necessary for her performance to come across as genuine?
Certainly one of the biggest Netflix shows of all time had its ups and downs for the cast. And for the stars of Stranger Things, they may have had more downs than one expects. We got an inside look into some of the most painful and terrifying scenes cast members were a part of. And we'll explain why they're not their most favorite ones too. Number 1. A whole lot of action for nothing? Yeah, that's not what this cast is about. Apparently, while filming a lengthy shootout scene in season 4, Finn Wolfhard had a very frustrating experience. He won't give us much about the scene, but we do know the group is caught up in some sort of shootout with a bunch of men in body armor. The director explained to them beforehand that they would need to shoot this complex bit in one go, so every moving part needed to hit their marks. But unfortunately, the first go was nearly flawless. That is until one of the soldiers missed their mark.
We do everything, and then the camera whips to the door, and the soldier is not there.
Even after this first take, Wolfhard was pretty ducked out, but they had to just keep pushing through till everything came out perfectly. Number 2. Talk about a strange reaction. Nobody ever knew where Caleb Mclaughlin would take Lucas Sinclair in Stranger Things. And of all the scenes he deemed uncomfortable, he found a moment in season 4 to take things off the rails for him. As Caleb explains, he and Mason Dye, who portrays Jason Carver, have a little tense showdown. Rather than stick to the script, all Caleb could muster was... As this was the final episode of season 4, he couldn't get into it too much. All we really know was that Sadie Sink was confused, and everybody else was just laughing.
And he kept like laughing, and it was a running joke.
We would never expect Lucas would do anything less bizarre. This embarrassing moment stuck with Mclaughlin till the end of the shoot, which doesn't make this his most favorite scene to shoot.
So every time we had to do that scene, oh man.
Number 3. We've all come to like Steve a little bit more, especially after season 1. But whether he was redeemed or not, we were a little happy he got some payback with being tied up.
Oh, that was actually pretty brutal, to be honest. Being tied together, that was really tough.
However, we're not happy that the awesome Joe Kiri looked back at this scene as one of his least favorites. As Steve is taken by the Russians in season 3, he's dragged and tied up by the soldiers. Looked pretty painful to us. And apparently to Joe, it was as painful as it looks, and lengthy too. He revealed just the scene of him being tied up and dragged took a whopping 3 days to shoot. Definitely not a fun time on set, and we can only imagine how much the scene dragged on for him.
But also, when you're doing it, you're like, you feel pretty in it, I guess.
Number 4, seeing how David Harbour gets along with co-stars on every project he does, we were quite surprised to discover the one cast member he loathed working with.
Oh my god, I hated that dog.
This pooch was not David's best friend in season 1. It would run off on him a lot, forcing production to do multiple takes of all their scenes. And to make matters worse, it seemed like its trainer was in it for all the wrong reasons.
And I just remember the trainer. Come on! We gotta make our money!
We would never blame the poor pup for this one, but due to increasing frustrations from the actor, it was not asked to come back for season 2. We hope it got a lot of treats and maybe an Emmy for his good boy performance. Number 5, you make me dizzy, Miss Millie. We were just sitting and watching this, and even that made us sick. Millie Bobby Brown divulged into what would be her worst time filming a scene. The scene in question comes from season 3, episode 6. As Eleven enters the chaotic mind of Billy and experiences a lot of twists and turns. Of course, they had to literally twist and turn Millie on a harness to sell the effect. What happens next? Well, she regretted it, first of all, and her stomach did not appreciate it. All that flipping made her sick after the shoot was over, and let's just say, we're happy there's no behind-the-scenes video of that. Number 6, heights are a no-go for us, and for Gaten Matarazzo, it's a definite terrifying time to go up against. This one comes from the infamous quarry scene in season 1, episode 6. As Dustin and Mike run away from their bullies, they get dangerously close to a cliff. Gaten, being sincere, was not only concerned for his own safety, but for that of his co-star Finn Wolfhard. We can wholeheartedly agree. Thank goodness Eleven was there to save the day.
Kicking butt.
Yeah, and still my hair is looking like this.
Number 7, how come no one's lost their voice in Stranger Things? Because we're surprised Noah Schnapp didn't lose his in this scene alone. We can remember watching the possession of Will in season 2 and barely being able to watch the terrifying moment. But all Noah can recall is having to scream a lot. They had to collect so many takes of just him screaming that it really took a number on his vocal cords. But he's a professional and he's willing to go that extra mile. Number 8. We all saw this one coming, and Joe Kiri was not looking forward to it.
They'd never done anything like this. It was like the fight day, you know?
Billy and Steve face off, resulting in a not-so-favorable outcome for Steve. He looked seriously terrified of Billy's rage, and that acting was more authentic than we like to think.
Very into this character, and he was very, he was giving it his all.
Joe was actually terrified of Daker Montgomery's acting in this moment, that the emotion really stuck with Kiri after filming. Number 9, a tearful reunion between two friends always makes for the perfect audience sob scene. This hard-hitting moment came from season 2, episode 7, when Eleven reunites with Callie. Millie reported she could not keep it together here, and she really doesn't like taking the emotions home off set, but it unfortunately did, and it was hard for her to let go of the heavy emotions during the scene. Nobody likes crying, and we can only imagine how hard it was for her to bounce back after this one.
I feel like I don't need to go to therapy anymore.
Number 10. It's always surprising to see that an unfavorable character is the total opposite of their actor. And as we all know, Joe Kiri is one of them. He recalls a moment in season 1 when Steve smashes Jonathan's camera. It made us all really dislike his character, and he was right there with us. Kiri really harps on hating these kinds of scenes, especially when it comes to bullying the character of one of his best friends behind the scenes, Charlie Heaton.
I kind of had a hard time sort of being mean to Charlie because I love Charlie so much.
He doesn't have a mean bone in his body, but his character definitely thinks otherwise. Number 11. We can all recall that lovely time when bowl cuts were the new trend. Wow, what an awful time. Stranger Things actually revived the ancient trend, forcing Noah Schnapp to rock one in every scene.
It's one of the best things on television, and
one of the worst.
He's definitely a little too young to remember how cool it was to have one, so he was not enjoying the little throwback. He insisted every season to restyle or cut it, but filmmakers were just not going to budge. Noah was never able to understand the style, questioning,
why doesn't Will, maybe he shaves his head? Like, really, did everyone have that haircut in the 80s?
Number 12. Uh-oh, could we be having a little co-star drama on our hands? Nope, not really. But watching your partner kissing another person might be uncomfortable. And this was the case for Charlie Heaton and Natalia Dyer, as she was kissing Joe Kiri in Season 1. We can imagine it was a little uncomfortable for Heaton, to say the least. But it seems like there's no beef between him and Joe, as their friendship seems to have moved past it. Plus, it looks like Steve really didn't get to have that relationship after the first season, so all that's in the past. Now that's a whole lot of crazy experiences for one big crazy show. We'd like to hope they had more favorite scenes, but it's hard to look past some of these moments. How awkward do you think it really was for Charlie Heaton?
You guys love the spoilers, right?
Whose bright idea was it to send actors on tours to promote the show and tell them they're not allowed to talk about the show? What a scam. Well, sometimes the actors just let things slip, ready to find out who's the worst at keeping secrets.
I'm going to just say 4 rumors about this season, and then I want to see your reaction.
Number 1. Uncomfy contacts means one thing: Vecna. During Netflix's official On the Set of Stranger Things video, Caleb Mclaughlin, who plays Lucas Sinclair, showed Gaten Matarazzo a photo on his phone.
Oh man, did they put contacts in you? Yeah. Were they uncomfy? Yeah.
While usually contacts wouldn't be a big deal, Caleb isn't one to wear them for his character. And this season, all of the contacts seem to be associated with possession by Vecna. So if that's not a spoiler, we don't know what is. Number 2. All harnessed up with nowhere to run. After what happened with Sadie Sink in the first half of Season 4, we can't help but feel that this post is a major spoiler. Couldn't the selfie wait, Noah? Of course, there could be other stunts in Part 2, but we're skeptical. Theory: maybe Vecna will go after all of them at once, and in a race to beat the clock, quite literally, Millie must stop Vecna to save her friends. Not a bad theory, right? Number 3. Surely an explosion is an innocent spoiler, right? Right? Out of fear of spoiling anything again, Noah took down a photo of an explosion taken while filming Part 2 of Season 4. We're sure it's some sort of spoiler.
And people were like, is this a spoiler? And I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna get in trouble.
But hey, once it's on the internet, good luck taking it down, right? Number 4. Darn it, Gaten! You're lucky you were just so adorable, or we might have been angrier about this. Gaten Matarazzo spoiled Season 4's ending way back in 2016.
So the monster was a recent test subject.
Number 5. At least Finn didn't leak Hopper's survival like Netflix did. While it might not be a big spoiler, it sure is a Season 4 spoiler of some description.
Will we find out what happened to Hopper this season? Okay.
Number 6. Honestly, we were grateful for the emotional preparation that Noah gave us. He spoiled the death of the dog in Season 3, Will's dog, Chester.
I think he died, didn't he? He did. Oh.
Number 7. We've got confirmation for returning characters in Season 5. Joseph Quinn may have just spoiled the fate of his character, Eddie Munson, hoping for a pair-up between him and Charlie Heaton's character, Jonathan Byers, for Season 5. And we doubt, since these two don't really know each other, that they could just be doing a cameo as one of Vecna's nightmare-y threats like Billy with Max. Hey, it could be a red herring, too. Who knows? Number 8. It would be a long season if these two didn't see each other.
Mike and 11. Are they gonna reunite?
Is this a spoiler? Once again, it can probably just be assumed this was going to happen. But hey, half our cast wound up in Utah, so anything is possible. Number 9. Surprise, this season they're in a mall. Shocking! Noah spoiled the awesome location they were filming at for Season 3.
We're at the mall,
The look on his face when he realized is just priceless, too. Yes, Noah is the one who just can't keep the secrets to himself. He's called the Tom Holland of Stranger Things by his co-stars because he spoils so much. Number 10. This is why only young people are allowed on Instagram. David Harbour went on Instagram Live and promised fans he'd read an excerpt of his script from Stranger Things. Millie was watching.
Alive! Go back to work!
Did she ever sass him hard?
Oh no, Millie, don't tell Netflix.
No real spoilers were given, although he did pop up in his television makeup. Not that that was any surprise, given it was already in the trailer. It's still problematic to go live on set in costume, though. Highly do not recommend. Who knows what could happen?
I'm just gonna read your sections of the script, Millie.
Number 11. Is it a spoiler? Or is he playing a terrible poker face?
Will we see 11 get her powers back?
But
Yeah.
Number 12. Netflix, you should know better. Really. Sometimes Netflix can be just as bad as the actors they put strict NDAs on. First off, they spoiled the fate of Hopper in their trailer for season 4. Second, because of course, part 1 ended on a cliffhanger with Nancy in the clutches of Vecna. Well, not his creepy left hand, but, you know, possessed. Knowing what we know about how this all works though, the clock could be ticking towards her doomsday. So is it really a spoiler? Well, it doesn't seem like any of the Stranger Things actors have dethroned the king of spoilers yet. Let's not forget that Tom Holland literally spoiled the biggest character demise in all of the MCU. Maybe a young Heaton comes close. Do you think Nancy Dyer will make it out alive? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for hanging out with us here at The Things.